I have
Woohoo!
a protein bar.
Ooh, fancy.
I don't.
Yeah.
Breakfast of champions.
I have part of my Millennium Falcon model.
I went to the doctor today. I don't like my doctor anymore. My doctor said I was fat. I'm like, what? I pay you for this? I mean, I already knew that, but you don't have to be so blunt.
Did they just
Captain
say straight up?
Obvious.
Was it just straight up you're fat, or was it like, hey, you could probably lose a couple pounds type of deal?
No, it was straight up you're fat. It's Mexico, so they don't do the politically
They don't
correct
do the meat
thing.
stuff.
No, no, no. What do they call that? Passive aggressive? No,
Yes.
it's just straight aggressive.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Did he
So
call
they're
you fat in English or Spanish?
uh both. Yeah, we use both on
He
that.
wanted to make sure he really got the picture.
But they were like, okay, that was yesterday, and then today they started me on Monjaro. Have you heard of that?
It's like Wegovy or the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
one.
But they're like, and so then they did like a body analysis, and they said I should only need it for like 2 months if I do like learn habits, good habits.
That's the hard part.
All comes down to having good habits, whether we're talking about body hygiene or cyber hygiene. How's that
Yeah.
for a transition?
Boom. Well, somebody says they have a mark on their forearm from Whirly Ball from me. I'm still having trouble getting out of bed from Whirly Ball. That was 2 weeks ago.
I'm so bummed I wasn't able to make it. I felt awful. It was achy and had no, and I was like, I don't want to be that guy that gets everybody sick.
No. But if there was somebody that I would choose to be sick from, you'd be on my list.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'd rather not get you sick.
All right. So what are we talking about tonight?
I don't know. Stuff.
Because last week I was in the middle of a flight. Actually, the last 2 weeks. So I haven't been here for a little while. Ron, how you
So,
doing?
Doing well. Was it the same flight for 2 weeks?
No,
Okay.
but
I think
I don't know how they coaxed me up to Minnesota twice out of
it,
Mexico.
at least it's in the summer.
It's true. That's true.
Minnesota's
Um,
beautiful.
so today we are talking about, well, our first chapter is chapter 16, managing security operations.
yep.
It's going to be the kickoff. And then chapter 17 is going to be preventing and responding to incidents. So incident management or incident response.
I was,
So go for
oh
it,
god.
Brad.
I don't know. I was just gonna say thank you, Evan, for asking me which chapters I wanted to teach because I totally jumped on this one when I saw like looked through the new book. I was like, oh, yep,
I'll
this is
take that
stuff
one.
I know really well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Can I
It's good
start with
to,
a question?
yeah.
Why is it called incident response and not incident reaction?
Incident, update your resume.
Management.
That's a good
Sure, you'll
question.
get to that.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Actually,
Cool.
tying it back to medical, you respond well to treatment versus reacting to a medication.
Yeah, there you go.
So
I like that.
response is positive, reaction is negative. That's courtesy of Zig Ziglar, the old sales guy, that
Oh, that's cool.
back in the day.
I had some incident response work that for a couple of the VCs as I have with that UNFI breach earlier this month. They were negatively impacted.
Hmm.
So that was
That
fun.
that was
So
fun.
I it's interesting because I saw one of their trucks in the parking lot yesterday. Obviously delivering stuff. But to go along with you, Brad, I don't know if you saw that I threw it out there in Teams, but one of um, someone I had talked to said that they actually had someone posing as someone from UNFI trying to get access to one of their locations in one of their networks.
Yeah, I'm
So
not
that was,
surprised.
yep. So yeah, and it's been interesting. There's a lot going on there. So it'll be interesting to have they actually started talking about anything there? Or have they still been radio
Guys,
silent?
I've got some information that I can tell you offline.
Cool.
I'm not going to put that out on YouTube.
I don't blame them.
Sorry, everyone.
So kick it off here. to the first topic is going to be one that I'm guessing, Evan, you're going to probably have some thoughts on, but asset security in chapter 16. So um, when anybody starts talking about asset security, what's the very first thing that you think of?
What's an asset?
There you go. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Well, it was a little bit strange how they broke this up because it is asset security, but it's provisioning information and asset securely. The information and asset ownership, then it does hit asset inventory in it, but they only talk tangible and intangible, and then
Interesting.
asset management. So it's kind of a interesting way of going about the way it's laid out. I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong, but
That's why we recommend multiple books, multiple sources for anything. Don't trust a single source.
mhm.
But that's a great question. What is an asset, right? The company, the organization, whoever you're serving, needs to define that. And your job as the security person, if this is something that you're working on, is to help them through that, to define it. Because one of the things that's kind of crazy about assets is most assets show up on a balance sheet. One asset that does not show up on a balance sheet is oftentimes like the most valuable asset is the information.
And that's where they list it as intangible. So um,
But even your other intangible assets, you usually put some value to them, right?
well, they're saying intellectual property, and I gotta find it because that's what threw me off is it's domain too, but it's not the first thing that is covered in chapter 16.
Hmm.
But where is it?
It's interesting. It isn't, huh? And I apologize because I'm ill prepared because I didn't actually read the
No, you're
chapter.
good. It's fairly early on, but let's see. What do they say?
No, software asset. It's right after
Sensitive
movies.
data, intellectual property, customer records, trade secrets, that type of stuff is considered what they call intangible. So like not non-physical elements essential to cybersecurity and business operations. So I think it does cover what you're talking about, Evan. I think it's
Mhm.
just I think a different way of looking at it.
Right. But it would be helpful for if our CPA friends would figure out a way to value data assets,
To
wouldn't it?
some,
I
they
mean, because
can. If
right,
it's like PII, PHI, person identifiable, personal health, that intellectual property. But it comes back to having that data categorization, classification, which most
right.
organizations don't do. So just
Yeah.
particularly in the day now with AI, and every single one of our sessions we have to talk about AI. It's like some rule now. But yeah, if I'm using our data to feed an LLM, do we quantify that? So you make a great point, Evan. How do you quantify
Yeah.
asset to value?
Well, it would certainly help us. I mean, and the thing is, I think we overthink it a lot, and that's one of the reasons why it hasn't been done. Because you split hairs. Well, what about this application, that application, and
Right.
but if there was some standardized way to value data, I think that would go a long ways towards us figuring out, true return on investment, for information security dollars being spent. Instead we do the best job we can with what we know. But I think if you can get there with a client to get them to actually value data, man, that'd be huge. But I always, in practice, it's always been, start with the easiest because most organizations don't have an asset management program.
Right.
So start with the easiest, tangible assets. Those are the things that you can touch, right? And from an information security perspective, maybe it's computers, servers, network equipment, all that kind of stuff. And then once you got your hands around that, then go after the software assets. So data, I mean, hardware, software, and then data. And it might take you years to get through all of that if you ever do. But the point on information security is risk management, right? Not risk elimination. And what's defensible for an organization oftentimes is progress. So if you
Yeah.
make progress towards these things in practice, you're serving the customer well.
Right. Yeah. You have to identify the gaps. That's your first step. I
Yep.
don't have an asset inventory. put out a roadmap to rectify that, and then, like you said, show progress.
But what assets do we include? Do I include my mouse? I've had students say inventory all assets, and I'm like, no.
The organization would typically set some sort of a threshold that says anything of value over X dollars. And that's going to vary based on depending on who.
In the U.S. Air Force in the early 2000s, we were counting monitors, and then they moved to anything less than or anything over $500. And then computers became less than $500, and they had to break that rule.
Right.
Yeah. Usually we're in my personal experience, it's been, that $100, anything under $100, we don't care. That typically covers your monitors, your keyboard, your mice, webcams, the kind of more air quote disposable pieces.
And in some cases, you do include the mice. But I think what it starts with from a security perspective is you have the discussion with whoever whether you're a full-time employee as a CISO or you're a vCISO, you have to have this discussion and come to an agreement on what we're going to define as an asset. And then let's manage that, because just that alone, puts you in a defensible position, right? Because what's going to be asked, you talk about breaches and you talk about incident response, and I've been deposed too many times, from opposing counsel. We talk about defensibility. It's such a big piece of this. They'll ask you, well, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Do you have an asset inventory? No. Well, it's not that you're going to lose the case because you don't have an asset inventory. It's another spot,
My dog joined me.
because you're talking about preponderance of evidence, right? You're talking about tipping the scale. What would a prudent person do in a similar situation? That's the negligence bar. So is it negligent to not have an asset inventory?
Yes.
Well, in our opinion, sure. But, when you're talking about, in a court of law.
Now, well, I mean, I guess it would depend on what you actually have, what's there. So if you have hardware and software inventoried and you're working on data, then that's probably defensible. But if you don't have anything, I would not want to be the one trying to defend that.
Right. I mean, it certainly makes it harder, to not be negligent when, things that just seem obvious that you should be doing, because it wasn't that long ago in information security where it would not be negligent whatsoever to not have an asset inventory. But those days are slowly eroding away. And things like, multi-factor authentication on something that's exposed on the internet. Today, that wouldn't be negligent. Should it be? Yeah, you ask us, for sure it should be. Will it be? Probably, eventually. So you want to put whoever you're working for in a good position that you don't have to continually be reactive. We can kind of tell what's coming down the pike so that we can start building these processes, before we have to stop everything, right?
Yeah.
I would argue that having an asset inventory falls under due diligence, which is covered in this week's material.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I would agree.
A nice little, what is it? Oh, where I can't find anything now.
That's why you
Control
need an
F
asset
break.
inventory.
Ron, boom, boom.
I put together, it has a nice table. So it's got what it is, the definition, the purpose, and the example. So, do care, acting responsibly, taking reasonable steps to protect assets, employees, and customers. The purpose, ensures organizations apply practical security measures to reduce risk. And the example is implementing firewall, securing physical access, encrypting sensitive data. And then due diligence is the ongoing um, action, to make sure you're protecting it.
Yeah.
I have a question. I always have questions. What about shadow IT? What do we do when there's areas of the business who just keep doing their own thing?
I mean, that's where hopefully you have security policies and you have your policies in place, and then that's where are you enforcing it?
Also,
Yeah, I mean,
zero trust. Plug
mean,
it in the
all-
network, won't go anywhere.
I mean, ultimately, it's not our decision to make, right? What about shadow IT? It's the business's decision to make. And our job is really to consult the business to make those good information security risk decisions. So we'll have an opinion for sure.
Oh, sure. But it's
But the part that's missing is just having the discussion often with executive management. You know, they don't know that this is their call.
right.
You know, because if I play the card like I'm going to make the decision that shadow IT is not permitted here, and we've got a policy that says it's not permitted here, and all this other stuff, if I'm the one who made the decision, it's not going to get implemented. It's not going to get enforced.
No, I'm glad you actually said that. I should clarify that if the execution of the policies is being done for violation of that, it should be done by the business, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be security. Security can I mean they're probably the ones going to identify it, or IT is going to identify it and report it, but it's management that needs to actually enforce the policies and the any discipline.
Right.
So if I can bring up a good example why, from a business point of view, is that it saves money, because particularly on the software asset side, I helped a state government where they had allowed each area, sub-agency, each agency to buy their own software, and they had tens of thousands of extra licenses that were never being used, spending lots of money. Plus, they were also getting in trouble with the Business Software Alliance because people will just download and start using applications, not realizing that within an organization you should pay for it. So build that software asset inventory, and you can begin to better manage licenses. Now, often today, it can be done a lot more automated, but it requires that centralization, starting with the policy.
Sure.
I have a question kind of going back a little bit. Sorry to retard the conversation, but why does the ISC Squared official study guide jump around so much?
Yeah.
This is the first time it's done that.
That's a great question, man. It drives me crazy because I'm a linear thinker and I like making connections. And so, yeah, you read the book and it's like, what the hell? I mean, we're moving again already. And then and then it comes up again later, and it makes it hard too when you're creating, you know, content to teach. It's like, dang, is this covered again later, or is
I
this
know.
it?
I'm like, wait, something's missing here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's covered another place. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I get that was their decision. I don't, for whatever reason, maybe they thought it would be easier to read, but I definitely didn't. I didn't like it how it jumped around.
Yeah. I don't read. I'm just waiting for the movie to come out. Is there going to be a movie?
Or someone should do a podcast. Ooh, just kidding.
How about that?
Well, according to ChatGPT, it says that it's organized according to the CBK, domain by domain.
And we know the internet never lies.
I disagree.
Not this new, not this version. The previous versions.
Obviously, ChatGPT hasn't read this book.
I mean, you could tear that down initially when you just look at the chapter 16. It covers domain 2, 3, 7. So how is that an 8? How is that?
Not even. Yeah. Anyway.
Should we write a new book?
Absolutely.
No.
Let's do it.
Why not?
Okay.
Go for it.
I'll need to do it on a walking machine because it turns out I'm fat, but whatever.
El Gordo.
See, Senor Gordo, you can call me that.
Rather than a movie, can we do like an animated or like a webtoon for it? I mean,
There you go.
we can have AI just generate.
That's because you can use AI to create it.
Sounds like a lot of work.
No, man, the AI does it all for you. Just tell it what to do.
Oh God.
Someone had a question saying that the IC official study guide isn't actually ISC Squared, it's Mike Chappell. I thought that Mike Chappell and company were doing it on behalf of them.
Yeah, ISC2 has their name on the title page, on the cover, so
yeah,
it's their
this is the one that
official.
Just the one that wrote it.
We should do the redneck CISSP study guide.
What y'all want to do is
That's right. We'll do it. We'll write it while we're eating barbecue.
Perfect.
I'm in.
Yeah, me too. I would do that.
Are they gonna, when they print it, will they also print the barbecue like sauce stains on the pages as well?
Yeah, and the recipes of the barbecue that we're
I'm
eating
not giving
all
up
the
my
time.
recipes.
Come on, Brad.
Nope. I've given up. I did include my spiced apricot glaze in the for ham in the recipe in the cookbook we put together for the internal.
Yeah.
So have you labeled that recipe as
CISSP
being
Duck Dynasty.
sensitive?
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
it is classified.
Just copyright it.
Is it a trade secret?
That is
by
need
chance?
to know only.
So what's the cheapest and least costly cloud model for a customer who might have budget restrictions?
It depends on the use case,
I want to know the customer that doesn't have budget restrictions.
right? I mean, it depends on what they're trying to do, right?
Right.
wait,
Yeah,
wait, wait.
cloud
We're supposed
model.
to know what the business does?
I don't know.
Is that new?
SaaS pass IaaS.
I mean, I've
I,
just been
I
told
did
we
call
need
it
to
that in
apply
the,
cloud. So
I did call it that when I was going through it. I called it IaaS. I was like, oh, yeah, oh well.
Yeah. That's one of those things you got to be careful when you abbreviate like asset management.
Mm-hmm. Ass man.
Ass management. Yeah, it's not what it is.
well, regarding cloud models, should cost be a consideration as well? Because the different models have different costs.
Absolutely. The language of business is money. Period.
Yeah, yeah.
So cost should enter into every discussion.
I think so. They clarified it there for like a test question example. I mean, again, it really depends on what the scenario is. Without knowing what that scenario is, it's tough to give you an answer on that. So in the exam, they would likely give you that scenario. Like, uh, I just had a demo with a company that had a example of that where they were saying um, they were working with one of their customers that was paying for 100 gigabit a month for ingestion, and they
Right.
realized that that was based on 1 month where they had an issue with Cloudflare, and that the next 3 months were less than half,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they switched to a pay-as-you-go, and it saved them, 60% of what they had been spending.
Right.
So, they'll give an example of something that you'll just need to know how to tell those apart and pick those things out.
Right. Because even on a generic sense, like just what's cheaper, SaaS, PaaS, or infrastructure as a service, you can't even answer that question because it depends on how you're going to be using it.
Right.
Who will be
Right.
using it, the number that will be using it.
Mm-hmm.
Also
Right.
have to take into account how you're going to manage that, because as you
Yeah.
go through that, you're going to need more technical people to manage those services rather than just someone being an admin on a web page.
Mm-hmm.
Getting
On
the
tying
system.
it into identity access management, does it have its own identity store or is it using another? How will it tie into identity federation?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
How does it work within the network? If that's not available, you may need to be looking more at a platform or infrastructure as opposed to just the software.
Right.
What questions should we be asking when business says we need to move this to the cloud?
What are you trying to accomplish?
There you go. Number
Moving
one.
to the cloud.
You're supposed to ask questions when people want to do that. You're not just supposed to do it. Sorry, I didn't.
Maybe I'm weird.
Yeah. What's the purpose? What's the why?
What business problem am I solving?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
if everybody else is doing it, maybe it might not be for you guys. Just because
That might be a good justification to run the other way.
Right.
I'll,
Yes.
I'll never forget. I worked at a place that one of the business units bought a new software for a new line of business, and they came to IT afterwards and it was like a $60,000 license fee. And they're like, okay, we bought this. Can you put this in place? A, we didn't have storage. B, we didn't have compute. C, it required enterprise SQL, which would have been $100,000 license for what they needed that we didn't have. And so something that if they had planned ahead, talking about shadow IT. So we went back to them and said, this is what you need. It ended up being, instead of 60,000, it added almost $120,000 or something to the total cost. So it tripled the spend because they didn't plan ahead. And shocking, that didn't happen again.
Well, the idea of having that enterprise architect, just like you would have an architect for a physical building, we need the technical architects to figure out the plumbing, the electricity. In this case, it could be network connectivity, identity, data flows, data stores. And then there's this whole security thing that we may need to think about someday.
Yeah. And we had that process in place. They just didn't follow it. And so, yeah, painful lesson for them.
Well, that's how you learn, I guess. Sometimes.
Like I said, they didn't make the same mistake twice, so that was good.
Yeah.
I was also very glad I wasn't the one that actually had to deliver that message. I just had to give it to the CIO.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
I was
see
thi-
this in the book, services integration. Maybe we need to talk about integration
API.
across. Yeah. So how would you address different integration challenges as a vCISO?
That's one of the big things is understanding the APIs, how they talk to each other, what access they actually have to between each other. Because way too often it's just plug in the API key and go without knowing exactly what anything does. So that's my first go-to, is just reading the effing manual.
RTFM.
Should we also have an API inventory? Getting back to
Yes.
asset inventory?
I mean,
Yes. And you
that
should have
would
an
be-
attack surface inventory.
yeah. Yeah, that's, to me, under that I almost view that as in line with like the cloud inventory, because that's, to me, where I go to when I think API is integration with cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, for
question in
sure.
chat about security of API keys.
The hell's an API key?
I would secure them if that's a question.
Yes.
I would do that. I mean, I don't know. Sounds good to me.
Well, this
Well,
is
that,
where
I
it
mean,
can,
there's the two main pieces to securing APIs is authentication for the API itself, and then
Mhm.
what the API gets you access to.
Mhm.
Using this API. So just test the authentication. I mean, if you want to start somewhere, test the authentication of the API itself, like the API keys, if that's how you're authenticating against the API, and then with an authenticated account, what can I access? Is it what's intended? Or, am I leaking something maybe that I shouldn't? Those are the two main things. What do you guys think?
I agree.
so there's the safe storage and transmission of the API keys.
Correct.
Don't
Yeah.
store any keys in code.
No.
No. Store them in ENV files and then make your ENV file publicly accessible.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, wait, shit. Don't do that.
You don't need ENV. Just do a text file.
Store them in
Because
GitHub. Someone put in chat.
GitHub, stored in GitHub. GitHub was down last week. Did you see that
Oh,
Mm-mm.
again? Yeah, I was actually in the middle of doing code. I was coding with Seth at FRSecure. We were doing some stuff with Project Broken Mirror. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, let me just do whatever. And I go and I'm like, it's down.
Huh.
So
That
it was
makes it
down for a while
a little bit more difficult to
to do anything.
do that, to do work.
Yeah, especially like when I'm, kind of dependent on that to share code. The Oh, and we should look that up. While you guys are talking, I'm gonna look it up because I think it had something to do with API. I think an API
Oh, that's funny.
Let me look at that while you guys talk.
So NIST, there's a question in chat about guidelines for API protection. So if you check out NIST Special Publication 800-228, published March of 2025, it actually talks about API security best practices. So when in doubt, look at NIST.
Shocking NIST has something about it.
I wouldn't follow
It's
NIST
stuff about
guidance on.
everything.
I wouldn't follow NIST guidance on zero trust though.
Is it not good? I haven't read it.
Oh,
Hell no.
it's confusing. They
Mhm.
have their best practices. Anyway, that was last week's conversation.
I mean,
Well,
So 1835.
oy, oy, oy.
yeah, okay.
All right, here it is. 1 week ago. We have identified the cause and are rolling out changes to restore normal service.
So, and Steve put in chat, this is where you can use your vault, password vault, although
Yeah.
it's no longer just for passwords, but vaulting, great use for keys.
Do they talk about pass keys on in the exam? Probably not. It's probably too early for the
I don't
exam.
know.
I would learn it. You
Yeah, I
never
would
know when
too.
they're going to throw new things that may not necessarily be just in the book,
hmm
because threat actors don't use this and say, oh, I'm only going to attack based on CBK.
I wish they did that. Those pesky attackers. Hey, you notice I said hackers and then I corrected myself and said attackers. I just want to point out two different things. Um, hackers aren't bad. We're all hackers. But if you've used duct tape before, you're a hacker, by the way. So that was sidetrack. Oh, I was thinking another thing we should do, because this is our first time doing it this way, right? The CISSP mentor program. I'm thinking like as we continue to, now that we've got this first version and as we refine things, like my 4.5 hour network course, we
I don't
should.
know how you spent that much time.
I don't either, man. I don't know. The hell, I just got to talking and
Yeah. That's the downside is there's nobody to keep you accountable.
well, and I love networks. I mean, I've always loved
You know.
networks. Networks have always been my thing. I mean, I could talk about networks all day long. It's just something I love to do. But the another thing we should do is, refine that stuff, but then I think provide some supplementary information, like regular supplements, because there's going to be a gap between what you have in the CISSP to pass the exam, and then you have what we encounter every day in everyday life, right? And that was just one example, passkeys. You're probably not going to see passkeys on the exam, but should you know it in practice? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take notes on that stuff.
Well, that's what Brian does a great job of pulling different references we talk about each week and putting it
Mhm.
into the Discord chats. So all of
Yeah.
those additional resources.
Yeah.
I did a CISSP boot camp for a university, and it was all professors that teach in their cybersecurity degree program.
Dang.
It was actually really good. They were open to learning, which was important, but there was a lot of discussion about no, stop. I don't care what you think for the exam. This is what we're talking about. Like, oh, you guys are killing me. But I mean, it was great. It was a great week. Um, and I enjoyed that they did challenge and ask questions, right? It's nobody wants to sit up there for 7 hours a day, 5 days in a row talking.
Yeah. Well, and you have to get comfortable, I think in this profession answering questions because it's not we have this language problem, right? We talk
Mhm.
about security stuff all day long. When I talk to my wife about the same things that I'm talking to you guys about, she's like, "What in the hell are you talking about?" You know what I mean? So she asks a whole bunch of questions and I need to be prepared to answer those questions, but then I also need to be prepared to feel comfortable in places where I don't have a damn answer for what you're asking. I mean, that'd be another one of those, I think, supplemental things. Like in practice, here are some tips on how to encounter and, kind of navigate these other issues that aren't going to be in the exam, but they'll definitely make you a better security person.
Mhm.
Because most of it's wisdom, and the wisdom comes from pain. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's experience with pain. And so if you want to save people from the pain, here, listen to this and save
That's
yourself from these eyes and the overweight and the high blood pressure.
that's why I do. If I can, if I can save somebody the blood, sweat, and tears that it took me to figure this out, why wouldn't I?
I was telling, something, mentee, I guess, you joke and you have these, candid conversations and stuff. And I said, listen to my wisdom, get more chicks. And he's like, what? And I go, yeah, because you won't have to look like this. You don't have to go through all the pain. Not that, I mean, it was a joke, right?
Mhm.
That's why I play all these musical instruments. But then my wife reminds me that I'm married now, but you know, maybe she'll like me more. All right, I'm going down a side again.
So
Yeah,
someone put in chat about storing encryption keys in a password manager. It should be a group password manager, not an individual human's password manager, because when
Mhm.
that human is no longer around,
yeah,
you may not have access to their password manager. So
yeah. It
this
should
is
be
where,
the organization's password manager, and those keys should be. It shouldn't just be one person. It should be a limited subset, but there should
yeah.
be
Right. And here's
more.
the thing, even on a personal level, my wife doesn't have access to any of my passwords, nor should she. 'Cause that's it. Well, you don't keep any secrets from your wife. I'm not keeping secrets. I'm protecting her and I'm protecting these accounts, right? The integrity of the account, even from my wife. However, what happens when I die? So there are instructions on where you can get my master key, but you won't be able to get my master key until I die.
I was going to say, do you have your break glass method? And this actually ties back to the book about change management. We did it and we called it production control. We're
Mm.
controlling who can access production. Devs should never access production. You should only allow certain people during certain times under certain circumstances access production. This all gets into that whole DevSecOps things I heard about once.
What?
Should we do DevSecOps?
That requires collaboration. Why the hell would we do
Sounds
that?
like work.
Oh
That way
yes.
you would have to have the development team talking to the security team, talking to the operations team.
Better to keep them in silos. They don't
For
fight.
sure. I mean, segregation of duties, bro.
Yeah. How do we rectify that? That's actually an
Well, there's
interesting
segregation of
point.
duties and there's segregation of communications, right? So yeah, segregate the duties. Don't segregate the communications.
That's a great example. I'm going to use that with a client.
Hey, this is what happens when you're overweight.
So just so you know, in CS, I think it's in CSF 2.0, they've got rid of segregate. It's now separate or segment.
I'm
So separate.
I'm sad by people that get triggered by that. But
I'm just,
yes,
yeah, I agree. I
it's
mean,
not
I
meant to be
understand why they did it.
you got to put these words into context, right?
Yep. But just an interesting aside.
Yeah. Because I will continue to make that mistake.
Oh
It'll
yeah.
take some time to unlearn that old habit and then start using the new words. But because I do want to be respectful, but I also need time, to learn
Yep.
the new way. And if you take offense to something out of context, man, that's kind of your problem, ain't it? Sort of.
It takes, I mean, well, Ron, Evan, and I have all been doing this over 20 years, which is depressing to say. It takes a while to unlearn habits that you were drilled into you for that long.
Well, especially when you have a whole list of things, right? I mean, when you look at the day and all the things that you need to work on, there's a whole shitload of things, right? And so you prioritize your list. You just don't get to it. You don't get to it. You don't get to it. Maybe someday you'll get to it, but that's the importance of context.
Yeah.
It's so important for us when we operate with each other, when we operate within the businesses that we're consulting in or working in, that we understand how hugely important context is in everything. The worst risk decisions you're ever going to make personally, with your family, at work, are going to be ones with shitty context
Yeah.
over and over again.
DYA, challenge your assumptions. There's also another one.
It's funny because I got an email today from somebody, and it was like somebody who obviously was making a boatload of assumptions and
Mm,
had things way wrong, right? And in my response, it's like I really appreciate your perspective. What I don't appreciate is rush to judgment, assumptions, and ignorance.
Yeah.
So let me put some context around what it is that you're complaining about, and maybe it'll help it make more sense. But you couldn't have been more off on the, I guess, the conclusions you made from your shitty context. I don't know. That's more wisdom. Doesn't make me a lot of friends, but it's truth.
Comes back to asking the right questions. You keep
Right.
asking questions.
Well, and I
I've
need to
got
be held accountable to it too, right? We all have bias. We all have certain, this is the way I see the world. And then sometimes, somebody else sees the world a little bit different. You're like, oh shit, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I've got a
John, you're,
question for the cyber masters, because they talk about denial of service attacks here in chapter 17. And I read the article about the massive 7.3 terabyte per second DDoS attack that Cloudflare stopped.
that was terabit per second. Just
Terabit,
saying.
thank you
I'm a
so much
network
for,
guy
thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
because you
I,
just exacerbated that by a factor of 8 right there.
how does that happen? I mean, obviously, you got some software sitting somewhere on somebody's computer and you can activate it as a zombie. I mean, is that how that thing works? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all command and control.
Distributed. I didn't see anything beyond that they stopped it. I didn't see any of the details. Have they released that?
I didn't read if they did.
Cloudflare has an article on it. I'll post it in Google Chat
Yeah.
or
how could I
YouTube chat.
protect myself from that to make sure that I'm not caught up in one of these DDoS attacks?
Well, you're talking about as a computer participating in the DDoS attack or being a
Yes, sir.
target of the DDoS attack?
Being so that my computer isn't used in that attack.
It's basic cyber hygiene, that we always talk about. Keep your systems patched, when you're going to websites maybe that you shouldn't be going to, you want to take extra care. Use strong passwords, use different passwords in all the places you go. It's all the same cyber hygiene stuff that we preach all the time.
Don't
If you don't
allow
want
your
to be
camera
part of
on
it.
the internet.
Yeah, and if you don't, in terms of being targeted, you can't do anything. You have no
It's on
ability
your
to,
ISP.
yeah. And even beyond that, I mean, you're talking level
Oh,
3.
wow. They're saying it delivered 37.4 terabytes in 45 seconds.
It's a lot of data. I remember when I got my first ISDN. I was really proud about that.
A lot of
I-
it baselining. So like chapter 16 talks about secure baselines, network segmentation, as I'm sure you talked about, Evan, and we also mentioned with zero trust.
Having good endpoint protection in place, patch management up to date.
I mean, yeah, the truth, a lot of things, when you watch daily users, daily, computing folks, they chalk things up to chance a lot. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is a computer only does what it's told to do, period. There is no chance. There is no coincidence. So if your computer is running slower than it was yesterday, there's a reason for it. And I have that kind of mentality where I would investigate it. Why is it running slower today? Is it my network slower? Is it my CPU slower? Is my I/O slower? I mean, what is it that's slower on my computer today? Am I running some applications that I shouldn't be
Why do I
running?
get these weird pop-ups when I try to go to the website? To any
Right.
website?
So your baseline is, and because people, I think get a little bit sideways and like, oh, baseline, that sounds pretty technical. No, baseline, if you're just a normal everyday user of the computer, your baseline is what you're used to every single day. The computer behaves this way every day. And if something outside of that, question it, right? A pop-up that I've never seen before. Well, that's weird. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
My computer's running slower today. That's weird. Why is it running slower? And you might need to dig a little bit, but also reach out, right? That's why, it's really important for us when we talk about incident response. The people are our biggest asset when it comes to, detection. But we have to have this triage, this place where they all know where to reach out. They reach out. They feel comfortable reaching out. There's no judgment for reaching out. I'm just calling because my computer's running slower than it was. So there's probably a help desk that they're going to call. But in the help desk script, there needs to be some root cause analysis so that we can determine, is this something that's malicious that we need to, escalate over into incident response? That's how you find them. I found more incidents over the years by far from people than I have from any intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, EDR system ever. Most of the things I've found over the years in EDR, XDR solutions or IDS, IPS have been false positives, which is a lot of work, right? You have to tune those things out, which
Mhm.
also requires root cause analysis. It requires the best thing in all of this is, an intimate understanding of yourself, an intimate understanding of your environment and how it's supposed to operate, what's supposed to be here, what's not supposed to be here. In order for you to do that, you have to have an asset inventory.
Yep.
How many incidents, Brad, you and I have been on lots of incident responses, probably you too, Ron, and I don't know about John and Brian, but hundreds, I don't know about thousands because I can't count that high, but hundreds of incident responses over the years. And how common is it for us to hear, what's that system?
Yep.
Or we don't have logging for that.
Yeah. Who, wh-
Where is it?
I thought we turned that off. I thought we decommissioned that. I mean, all the same kind of like you didn't know your environment. Take the one that I talked about, I talk about a lot because it was just kind of a fun breach to work on, the target breach.
Hmm.
When you look at the target breach, Target saw it. The triggers all over the damn place, alarms going off all over the place. What stopped them from actually, I think, mitigating the attack before it did all the damage it did was a complete no understanding of their environment and who they were.
Hmm.
Whose server is this? What? Well, I don't know. And so they, if you look at all the help desk tickets and all the communications and emails that were going back and forth, nobody knew whose server that was. And
Wow.
here's how important that server was. And I'm talking about the server, the aggregate server for all the camera feeds. That's a really important server that you don't understand who it belongs to.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh,
But
that's physical security.
oh my God, yeah. And so, and nobody's immune to it. And that's why we say complexity is the worst enemy of security. The more complex you make your environment, the harder it is to do asset inventory, the harder it is to have an intimate understanding of your environment, the harder it is to prevent incidents, the harder it is to detect incidents, the harder it is to respond to incidents. So complexity, my God, it's crazy. And how would it make any sense whatsoever if I already don't have an understanding of my environment for me to add more shit to my environment? It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense when you talk about spending information security dollars. Would you rather misspend an information security dollar or not spend an information security dollar?
Yeah.
I'd rather not spend it every single
Yeah.
time. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's my
One of the
wisdom.
questions that was
I
asked.
got this wrinkle from that wisdom.
That was one of the questions I got asked on Monday. Was how do you communicate and like, get the budget that how do you justify it? I was like, you speak the language of the organization, right? And Vinay was in the room, our CFO. I was like, if I identify a risk, I'm going to say, hey, Vinay, this is the cost. Assuming we've already identified how much it costs us per hour per day if we were down or that system was down. And I can then say, this is the cost to prevent that incident from happening one time. That's a language she understands. So if the cost to be down is $50,000 and the cost to prevent it is $20,000, that's something she can understand.
Right. Well, and that's on a level of maturity too, right? Most
Oh, sure.
organizations,
But it's
mo-
still the concept is the same. You can't get a budget, you can't justify it if you can't explain it.
explain it exactly. That's the key because you don't always have to explain it with dollars either.
No,
You know,
but I'm
if
just using that
if
'cause it's the CFO, right? That's the language she understands.
which is a
So
perfect example because that's the maturity of that organization, right? I mean, if you're there and you can do that, I think it's definitely preferred. But if the name of this game is risk management, and I'm not the one who makes risk decisions, the business makes risk decisions, then I will if I'm not at that level of maturity, which most organizations aren't, most organizations, this is all foreign language, most of it.
But sometimes it's just getting the right people in the room. Can I share a quick
Right.
story?
But
I was
here,
doing,
let me just finish this real quick. So
okay,
if I do risk management, I have to assess risk, right? And then we make those risk decisions. I consult you to make those good risk decisions. Based on your risk decisions, we calculate what the cost would be to implement those risk decisions. Now your budget is justified. If it's too expensive, well, then we're going to have to change some of the risk decisions that we made. So we're going to have to adjust
Mhm.
risk and cost.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, Ron. I just want to finish that thought.
no, it's a great thought coming back to how do we quantify. This gets into quantifiable risk management. So quick story, long time ago, I was doing pre-CMMC, so 800-171 assessment, and had the network person in with the CFO, and they had never met or talked to each other. CFO wanted to know, why are we spending so much for our internet? This was kind of back in the day. And so network guy said, oh, here's our top websites folks are going to.
Oh God.
YouTube,
Oh
Facebook.
no.
CFO had a little cow, and all of a sudden the network guy got a lot of really good attention because the network guy had been trying to say this to the CFO for
Oh,
months.
oh, interesting.
So it's just sometimes providing the data to the right people at the right time when they're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
So, and I see a question in chat about having unlimited budget for InfoSec. What would you do first? I think we already talked about that. Yeah,
If
covered
I had
in the chat.
unlimited budget, the first I would do is change. We'd have to, I mean, I'd implement, we have to have a justified budget. That's not the way to do it.
Right. Yep. There's
Yeah.
never
I don't want to
an-
spend money. I want to provide
Right.
value to the business. I want the business to make more money so that the business can succeed, but I want to do it responsibly.
Yeah. And I think it would, I mean, I guess if you're, gosh, I don't know how to answer that because every organization has some level of security, right? So I don't know, I can't say like, if I was starting from scratch, that would be maybe one thing, but going into a company now, it would depend. Um, if we were starting a startup, good
I would
firewall, good.
focus on people and process
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Technology should follow. Too often we look at technology, just to get back to the cloud discussions. We implement technology not understanding its purpose. So understanding what is the mission
Yeah.
we have.
Good point.
So it's
Yeah.
and
What are we
it's
trying to accomplish? Because
Establish
Yep.
establish governance, right? Rules for the
Yep.
game. Yeah, I agree with
Yep.
that. I can't stand chaotic security programs because then when shit hits the fan, everybody's pointing fingers. It should be obvious. If you've got good governance, it should be obvious who's accountable
Mhm.
for whatever decision was made. Not that they didn't make mistakes. I mean, we're all human, right? But it should be obvious.
Speaking of, I'm going to transition us because I'm going to have to jump in a moment, but there's a problem I'm seeing with the book, and we've already addressed it when shit hit the fan.
Mhm.
How do you define incident? And what's the difference between an incident and an
Oh,
event?
I have that because I didn't like what the book said. Hang on, I
I
gotta
like
find it.
I like to
I've seen,
simplify it.
yeah, I've seen too many organizations get it mixed up. We've had 5 incidents in the past week, and it's like, no, you haven't. Anyway, Brad, take it away.
An incident is any event that has a negative effect on the CIA of an organization's asset.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that. Any event that has, and I usually just simplify it even more. Any incident, I mean, an incident is any event with a negative consequence. That's an incident.
I threw the CIA in
But
because
I love you so much, Brett. I want to give you a hug right now because like you and I speak the same language.
but it should have a legal definition because with incident reporting now a big thing for CISOs, vCISOs, you don't want to declare anything that's just a negative because someone's feelings got hurt or my computer was down for 20 minutes. That may not be an incident.
Well, it still could be an incident, but you would cover that when you classify the incident
yes,
because, defining
Good
an
point.
incident and then it's triaged and then what type of incident is it? I like, I like simple, high, medium, low. You could add, as part of that classification, is this a reportable, meaning it's
Mhm.
covering some type of regulatory data, but it's an incident. I still want to know it. And then we classify it. Low severity incidents, help desk can handle those. Moderate severity incidents, I want the security team involved. We don't have to assemble the incident response team. We don't have to get all formal, get executives involved, but they're going to be reportable internally, that kind of thing. High severity incidents, yeah, the incident response team is assembled, and that's when, everybody's on board.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you put, is it reportable? I put, is it, I always want it to have a compliance aspect or regulatory aspect because there may be, but I like the reportable as being uh, it kind of encompasses all of that.
Hmm. For sure. And whereas events are just things. I mean, shit,
Mhm.
events are happening all the time.
Yeah.
I just
Something
farted.
happened.
I
Something
just
happened.
farted. I just farted. That's an event.
That's an
Does it have a
incident.
negative consequence? Well,
TMI.
yeah. Does it have a negative consequence? Yeah, I pushed a little too hard and it became
Gosh.
more than a fart, so it's now an incident. I'll be
So
back.
I'm
I have to go
flipping
change
through
my
the book.
shorts.
Something else I see missing. Should we like keep track of our incidents and like collect evidence and metrics around incidents and follow
So
a common process?
it does. It does go through the incident management steps and including lessons learned. Um, you know, but absolutely, we need to be tracking that information. And one thing I put in there, and I don't remember uh, if the book covered it or not, but right, it's really important. Incident management does not include a counterattack against the attacker. Attacks on others is counterproductive and often illegal. Please do not do it.
Yeah, don't.
So at what point do we start doing computer forensics?
Thursday.
Perfect. Tomorrow.
It happens. It's interesting with that because those are hard to necessarily like put a specific. It doesn't feel. Is it detect, respond, mitigate, report, recover? You're doing forensics the entire time you're working an incident. Either you're collecting the forensic information and data, or you are investigating what happened. So, but it could fall in multiple areas of the incident management steps.
Reason why I bring it up, I sometimes act like the stupid user, in the chat, silly user, because I've had attorneys ask that. At what point can we start pounding on keyboards as part of the investigation? It's like preserve evidence,
Well, and
document.
the fact that you asked the question, Ron, shows your experience in
Yeah.
in these kinds of things because it needs to be discussed and entered into your incident response process. It's going to be different from organization to organization, right? Because the environment's different, the regulatory requirements are different, the legal requirements are different, the business requirements are different. So I wouldn't expect, a formal forensic investigation because, like Brad said, you always protect evidence, even in the initial investigation, right? Because you don't know which way this is going to go. But at some point, you're going to make a determination, as you're protecting evidence, at some point, you're going to make a determination this requires a formal forensic response, which means, we start, creating our images and we start protecting our images, chain of custody, all that stuff. But I love that you asked the question, because again, that's just something that's not discussed enough when you're building an incident response plan.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask on top of that, since you're just mentioning it. So as one of the steps, if I do find a system is compromised, I should just totally shut it off, right? Because it's been
No,
compromised.
well, I mean, depends on the incident, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want it isolated is ultimately what I was getting at, is you don't want to shut off because you want to preserve that evidence where turning off the system could destroy that
And,
evidence.
and in some cases, depending, again, very much depends on the organization and what tools they have in place and maturity. You may not want to actually isolate that host because that could tip off the attackers.
Hmm.
It's true.
Yeah, it
Right.
depends on the stage of the attack for sure, right? If you find like a piece of malicious you know, it may not have been detonated yet, right? The ransomware hasn't been detonated yet. And so there has to be some observation, some care taken before you cut it off. Because it might, like you said, it might trigger the next phase of the attack.
Yep.
So is there a good tool or something we can do to help us prepare for incidents, like practicing exercises?
Chat GPT, dog.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, I was surprised with in here that they didn't include the tabletop in this because they did preventative and detective controls, and I'm like, well, that's
I love tabletops. They are so quick and easy way to find out where gaps are and get people talking. And it so should a tabletop only include IT?
there's multiple types of
Hell
tabletop,
no.
right? You can have a technical tabletop where it is IT, and that could be a DR or IR. You could have a business organizational, which is going to be represented, and then an executive tabletop.
Yeah.
I mean, you should have it at all levels of the business.
This reminds me, I gave a keynote last week at SecretCon, and I had some advice on this. Number one, you're not testing the plan. You need to focus on you're testing the people. Because a lot of times people get that, and it does make a difference that you're testing the people, you're not testing the plan. And then I had another piece because I forgot my wisdom, so I wanted to share it because there was three parts to. Oh, if your IR plan assumes people won't panic, it's trash. If
Well,
your if your architecture relies on everything going right, it's fragile. If your culture punishes truth, you're breeding failure. But that first one, like, assume that it's not going to go according to plan.
well, I always assume that. I thrive in the chaos. That's what
Well,
makes it
you and I have ADHD. ADHD people, we're
what makes
happy
it
in chaos. I love chaos too, Brad. That's why I love you.
good. We are chaos together.
How do you prepare for blind spots? Was asked in the chat. And keep in mind,
Practice.
chat, you may be a little bit, yeah.
I mean, realistically, is this it? Going back to my IT days, right? But it absolutely relates to this. Is we would do quarterly restore testing, and every quarter we would restore AD and a different system or line of business, and you start to see around those corners because you do it. You have to do it. There's and as you run into issues, that's when you start going, oh, hey, hang on a second. Kind of his experience and just knowing and just doing it.
Do you
Yeah,
recommend checklists as a part of incident response?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing about, handling blind spots, you know, it's going to happen. But the better you understand, I mean, that's one of the important things about speed isn't important in incident response. People think you've got to go
Understand.
fast. It's deliberate
Mm-hmm.
movements are fast, and defensible movements. So when you're making decisions and this blind spots, like I've never seen this before, that's when you have to use your own discernment. You have to use your own understanding of the environment, your own context to make a good, educated decision. And the second part is if you're going too fast to document, you're going too fast.
Oh
You have
yeah.
to document everything because what's going to happen when you run into a blind spot, you're going to make a decision, and let's say it's the wrong decision. And this is now going to leave you open, not probably personally, but the organization to, potentially some legal liability. They're going to ask you why you made that decision,
And
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 you're not going to
not
remember.
well, and it's yeah, I was gonna say because it's not gonna be that day, that week. It's gonna be 2 years, 3 years,
Right.
you
Why
know,
did you do this? You're like, I, I don't know what I had for breakfast this morning.
right.
Well, that's
So,
partly why I bring up checklists, because the checklist will tell you, well, take deliberate steps. I'm
mhm.
thinking about Miracle on the Hudson with Sully,
Oh yeah.
where what did he do? He followed his checklist when the goose hit the plane, or the other way around. Yeah.
Mhm.
Even though it was a blind spot, had he ever landed on the Hudson before? No, but did he know exactly what to do? His co-pilot he'd only met 3 days before,
Right.
but they followed, trust the process, build the process, test the
Mhm.
process, practice,
Well,
and then
yeah, no, and that's the one thing that I'm happy that I just do CTS now, and not the actual IO work, because you spend as much time documenting as you do actually investigating.
Right.
And I did this at this time. This was the result. Here's the file that was pulled. Here's
Well,
screenshots. Here's it, and it just, I mean,
yeah.
there's a thrill to it. Don't get me wrong, but I'd rather
Well,
just
no,
do the hunting and not document.
and sadly, a lot of times what's missing from these books on incident response is the importance of a scribe. I've always had a scribe on my teams, right? Because I'm busy, making decisions, leading the incident response team. I don't have time to document everything. So you have this scribe whose job is to collect all this information to ensure that we've got everything documented. One, it frees you up to do other things, but two, on a big incident, you've got people coming and going all the time, right? From the war, if you've got a war room set up or whatever.
People are
And
doing
it,
different things at the
and
same
it, yeah, and it's such a waste of time to bring somebody up to speed. It's like, here's the documentation. Get yourself up to speed, come back in 15 minutes and, we'll get working. It's just those little things they're big difference makers, during an incident response.
AI notes. Well, the risk with AI is it your local one, or are you feeding it potentially very sensitive information into a learning, and letting it learn off of an incident? That could be a huge problem.
Yeah, for sure.
So a couple questions that are popping up. This one was a couple minutes ago, so maybe it's not in the same context now that we've had this discussion, but would external third-party audits help? So I'm guessing that's in relations to testing or say a TTX because we've been on this discussion for a bit.
You know, I mean, I would say if you're, you would probably want a third party to facilitate a tabletop, but the audit is just going to see if you did it or not. It's not going to necessarily bring value to it.
So that was my thought as well when I saw that is I would consider that more of a maturity thing that would come a little bit later where you want people to be doing it internally because if you run a tabletop internally, you're gonna find issues and then you can go and address those. Maybe after you've done that a couple times, then maybe having a third party help you out with that and they might be able to
Well,
bring something else to you.
and
But I'm not sure even if an audit would be the right term
yeah,
for it.
I agree. And for me, the audit, bringing in and having an audit is one of the last things I do in a security program, because if you don't have the stuff in place, there's nothing to audit.
True.
I
It's
mean,
true.
Yeah, and every audit has to have a purpose behind it, right? You don't just do audits for the sake of audits. There's lots of audits that,
audits are so fun
I
though.
yeah, not for me, but there's lots of audits that I want to have as the CISO. Like I want an audit done on this so that I can identify gaps and consider, how we might make it better.
But you
So you've got your internal audits and you've got your external audits. I don't like the
still have to
external
have your
audits.
governance in place. You have to have the evidence to audit against. You have to have the stuff, the logging and the maturity to be able to audit, right?
Mhm.
I could throw audit, and we've got a great template that would be a very defensible position for people to start with. Why?
Yeah. Why?
Actually,
That's the big thing. We need to ask why on like everything we do in this industry. You see
isn't
people doing
there
stuff, you see people doing stuff, you're like, why are you doing that? Well, because the standard says to do it. No, that's not a good why. You know what I mean?
aren't you aren't you supposed to ask why like 5 times or something like that? Isn't there like a
Three
whole
times, I think.
something like that? Yeah, I remember hearing a keynote about asking why. I don't remember it honestly.
I think
It's
it's three times. I just saw this somewhere too.
And the better you understand the why, the better you're gonna be able to defend the why.
that is true. Right. Any sort of best practices around break glass accounts? So
Wear
I'm guessing that's
gloves because the glass can cut your fingers. That hurts.
so. Um,
That's
my
all I
thought
got.
on that
Oh, it is five
was
lines. You're right.
is
Darn it.
it five?
5 wise?
That was the keynote. It's three is like kind of the base, the minimum. Oh, so we were both right. Sorry.
Why? Why?
Break
Why?
glass. I don't know.
I did it 5 times.
So like where would you put that? Where would you, if you were looking for a break glass account, where would you want to see that if you needed it? Let's start there.
Depends on who's going to be using it and in what situation. Sometimes we've done break glass accounts where I'll write half of the password,
Yeah.
I'll write half the password on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope. Another person will do the same thing, and then we'll put it in a safe. And
I mean, we did
only
it
under certain conditions,
password
these,
managers too, right?
yeah,
I have it in my vault. The other person has the other half, and you need to know which one goes first too.
yeah.
I mean, I
And
guess it's only two chances, but still.
that's built into a lot of the identity management solutions nowadays so following that process, but you can do it manually. The big thing about, the process around it is it has to be objective. Objective things have to happen. It can't be somebody's judgment call.
Which
Objective things have to happen for you to open it up.
which does play into this chapter because we do talk about uh oh gosh, now where is it? Too many freaking slides.
While he's looking for that process you just explained, Evan, is split knowledge or two-person control. I
Yeah,
didn't know that you guys use that out in the silly villian world.
Silly villain. Yep. It
yeah.
works.
I used the one that I used is because it more people get it is like the nuclear code, right? That's the one that people understand.
Yeah. And these are the God accounts, right? The little g God accounts in your environment.
Where the heck is it?
And I tell people like even like I'm working with my management team right now. We're trying to work on things.
Oh, yeah, two-person
Contingency
control.
plans. Contingency plans like what happens if I go batshit crazy tomorrow? I mean, I don't plan on it, but it could happen. It happens to other people. Why wouldn't it? You know what I mean? It's like you have to play these things out and you have to take the emotion out of it. It has to be logic. What happens if I die tomorrow? I don't want to die, but it could happen. And the last thing I want to do is leave people in a lurch because that happened. And the same thing with like the passwords, if I had the little G God account to myself, and yeah, I'm super trustworthy today, but let's say, my wife is leaving me. I started a drug habit. I mean, shit happens, right? And I start doing things that are no longer characteristic of me, and I shouldn't have that God account anymore, but you won't even know it because I can delete everything and change everything. So it's just the prudent thing to do. And nobody should take offense to, not having that access.
I agree.
I don't want that access either. That's more meetings.
Get more responsibility.
That's true. It is more responsibility. Hi, Brad. You're back.
My dogs are going absolutely insane, and I cannot figure out why. Well, can you guys hear them?
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay.
So
No.
I do want to take it on something, Brad, and it hasn't come up yet. And while it's still on the back of my mind, because it is something that is important, um, personnel safety and security.
Hang on, I can't hear you. There's no.
All right.
So, in that case, I'll hit it then. So, part of this, part of the CISSP is personnel safety and security, as is in here. So, I do want to call this out here, because it's something that we do see is when you get information or questions asking about protecting people, people are always going to be the primary piece of security. So, if you see something along the lines of, what do we do in this situation, and one of them is protect people, that's probably going to be your answer in most cases
Okay, sorry.
because people are paramount.
Yes.
Well, let me just address Carrie's question really quick because it's just a misunderstanding. I don't have the God account. The God account is under the break class. So that's the reason why you don't want me to have, you know what I mean? The God account is the break glass account. So in order for me to get access to that, I have to corroborate with somebody else and we have to go through the process.
Yeah, that's it too. The two-person control.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brian. What was your question?
So I wanted to address the personnel safety aspect that was covered here in this
Yep.
chapter to make sure people to get it out there, make sure that people are aware because it is something that does come up on the test and
Yes.
is very testable.
Yes. Yeah. Employee safety is always number one. That's always, regardless. It doesn't matter. The other thing is, what's one of the first things you should bring back up if you were offline? Finance. Be able to pay your people because they're not going to work it for free.
Yep,
Mhm.
it's a good call out. What about the employee that has been working at the organization for 10 years and hasn't taken a single day of vacation or sick leave? Is that suspicious at all?
Yeah, that was so. I like. Good job. So looking at that, we're looking at mandatory vacations, right? So this actually was kind of a thing that happened. I'm not sure. It kind of could go under job rotation or mandatory vacations. But I was working at a bank, and one person, or we were looking to buy a smaller bank, and for a little behind the scenes, you have like whatever the black team or whatever they call it at each bank. But it's not public knowledge. It's a very small subset of security and IT and then the banking. Um, you go in Saturday after the bank closes and Sunday and review everything, and then you're out. And if you approve it, bank changes the name on Monday. So we went in and did this, and they ended up having to call somebody because they couldn't figure out something. I don't really, it's just been a long time, but they couldn't figure something out. And she said, "Oh, I'll come in. I'll take care of that," because that was her job. They're like, no, no, it's fine. We just wanted to know how to do this. And it turns out she'd been embezzling for over like 10 years because she was the only one who did that particular thing. So that's the point. And it was over $1 million. I don't remember the exact amounts or anything at this point, but it was not an insignificant amount. So that's what the job rotation and mandatory vacations are there to prevent that from happening. That if you know that you're not the only one doing it, and that is typically where we see that, right? I think is the most common is in banking and finance. Um, but yeah, if you don't do that, people get complacent. Oh, I'm the only one. I can cover my tracks. Nobody else will see it. Well, if you rotate jobs, then no, you're not. And if
Plus,
you
you got a single point of failure because you have no cross training.
right, well, yeah, exactly.
So even if you don't want to play that card, because sometimes people don't want to be like, "Well, I'm never going to steal," and I'm just offended you even asked that.
No, I
It's
think
like,
from a
well,
business
what
perspective,
happens if you win the lottery?
right, exactly. Or right, mandatory vacations reduces burnout, improves overall security awareness and productivity. Right there, as a business, there's a positive way to spin this for sure.
Mhm.
But the reality is, this is what the control is trying to prevent.
This is what burnout looks like.
So I've got an interesting one that kind of goes along with your example, Brad. So I was a bank teller way back when, and this is two-person control. Every day they would pull the envelopes from the ATM, and then we'd have to go through those envelopes and take out any cash and such, right? We had an intern of all things that one day he was there, some people showed up, and then he walked out not long after they had talked to him. Turns out that we weren't following the protocol at our branch. And anytime we opened up one of those envelopes, it was supposed to be two people at all times. He was taking basically money out of the envelopes, stuffing in his pocket, and just marking that there was nothing in the envelope. and they were able to track it back to him. And yeah, it was like, how
I
how
mean,
did you not think this through, right?
I
But
mean,
like,
Most criminals don't, though.
yeah.
You're just like, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
funny because 2 weeks later, there was cameras put up behind all the tellers, one for each teller station. And it was funny because people would come in and comment, "Oh, you guys, is security an issue?" It's like, that's not for you guys, that's for us.
right.
Those cameras,
I
they're
worked
watching
as a
us.
bank, I worked as a bank teller too, and it just blows my mind because I know I had one. Somebody came in. What is a roll of quarters? Is what, $10, I think.
$10?
Yeah. Okay. So they came in with like 35 rolls of quarters, and that's a pain because you got to actually like check it, right? You can't
Yep.
just say like, oh, well, you're good. And I ended up closing that day $10 off,
Hmm.
and I somehow I don't know if they pulled it back. I just somehow missed that, and I mean, I knew exactly what happened. I was like, they came in with like a shit ton of quarters. I must have just missed.
Yep.
So what are you gonna do?
Yep. Indeed.
They will catch you.
Yep.
I
They'll
didn't
catch it
get in trouble.
eventually.
It was the only incident I ever had where I was off at all. But it happens. Mistakes happen.
Yep.
Never expect to get away with the same thing more than twice. DMX.
Right. Let's see. So question, we covered that. So any thoughts on agentic AI bots and what do we do with them? And this was actually a new one for me. I heard that term about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Um, so and basically for anybody that doesn't know, and this is a basic understanding of it, I haven't gone super deep, is basically AI bots that are able to do something. I, Making decisions is a strong way to say it, but like
Mm,
it can look at something, it can say like, okay, here's the guidelines. So because of this, I'm going to do this thing, or I'm going to trigger something to happen. So if I'm wrong on that, please call me out on it. But that's the way I picked it up. So it's now you're not just referencing something, you're telling it to like say, hey, create a policy for me. It's now able to ingest that information and kick off some sort of something that you tell it to do, is what that sort of process is. So it's one step toward further to start replacing
oh,
people.
it's so basically it's agentic AI is what self-driving cars use.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. That's a good way to look at it. Interesting.
I
So
mean, I think it's still I don't know. I mean, I think you gotta understand the risk and what it can do and what is the value.
yeah, as I so in that discussion I had, it was with a client. It's like, so we're still in the wild west of AI right now.
Hmm.
And its security is paramount, especially with the information that you have. So it's running a risk assessment like anything else against what are you doing with it? What's the intention? What sort of data are you feeding into this to make it run? And what are you going to allow it to do? Also, in this case, if it can make those sorts of calls for you, or if you're relying on it for that. I wouldn't put it in charge of, medical equipment, for instance. But can it do something else for you? Can it kick off, say, IR processes maybe? Hey, we're seeing this thing. I'm going to generate something or notify somebody. But yeah, definitely no PII data.
I would say yeah, there's an interesting one. So Siemens uses agentic AI, analyzing real-time sensor data from industrial equipment, predicting failures before they occur. Following the deployment, they reduced unplanned downtime by 25%.
Wow.
And
So
that's the way to use agentic AI. I was just listening to a podcast with Malcolm Gladwell with IBM. They were Palo Alto, and they were talking about predicting, using the AI for that purpose. When is this going to happen? How is this going to happen? How often is this going to happen? If I'm the king, I want two agentic AIs, one to watch the other one, and I want to fail fast so we can get there, as quick as possible. She had a really great analogy of how there are more bank tellers today than there were in the 60s pre the invention of ATMs. And people were afraid that when the ATMs came around, that the bank tellers were going to go away. But now there's even more bank tellers. Now I haven't gone and checked the empirical data on that, but she works for Palo Alto, so I'm pretty sure she's correct in it.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I think it just changes, right? And I think that's the people fear uncertainty. And so and change is uncertain. So but yeah, I can see where, agentic AI would reduce, you don't need a person to be watching for this stuff. Let that person go do something else that's more productive.
Yeah. So it's funny because I wonder how long until we've got the first McDonald's that's all AI driven. Seems like something that they would do.
But that way your people are able to, like, I think Brad just said, they're able to focus on, less mundane tasks and more pressing tasks.
If we can do it properly, I think it absolutely opens up opportunity for huge growth with creativity and new things, because who wants to sit and stare? Like Evans told the story where his first job was staring at logs and he fell asleep. How productive is that? If we could have computer do it and just alert when there's hey, we're seeing something that's a problem. That's a much better use, because then now he's going and doing something
Yeah,
productive,
something more productive.
not just sitting and staring at a computer screen hoping to catch something.
Makes sense. So let's see. Anything else that was in these two chapters that you wanted to hit on, Brad?
I think, I talked about the service level agreements and understanding that, addressing the personal safety, that's going to be huge. That's really going to be critical, to realize that. Let's see. Understanding, what a honeypot is, I think, and why you shouldn't use them unless it's for research. I think just understanding what the MITRE attack matrix is, excuse me, that it's the TTPs are what I remember. I don't think that they're going to test you. And John, you took it much more recently than I did, but they're not going to test you on the tactics and examples.
I don't recall anything like that.
They just are going to be more, what is it? So understanding it, the knowledge base of identified tactics, techniques, and procedures, and possibly, how it's structured. Yeah, I mean, overall, I really did try to put my slides together as like flashcards that you could use, for studying. Here's what you need to know. But obviously, you're going to want to read the book and have a solid understanding. But again, yeah, I really tried to do it just to like how I would study and flashcard.
Gotcha. Cool. So
I had to, I had to pee.
Evan he missed out on all the AI fun. We would love
No,
to hear.
no, John, no, we did not talk AI.
No.
Not getting started. We'll be here all night.
You know why it took me so long to pee?
You're old.
Prostate. Yeah,
They have a pill for that.
I know they do. It's tamsulosin. No side effects. It's pretty good. I didn't take it today. So you want to talk about AI?
No,
No. All right.
we did. We had a good conversation. You can listen to it later. We're good.
All right. So anything else that we wanted to get into? If not, I do have some practice test questions that I put together. If we want to throw those up, but if there's anything or any other questions out there that anybody would like to ask,
I'm gonna go start my oven so I can eat dinner after this.
recall.
I ate a protein bar when we started this. That
I
was
saw
dinner.
that. Was it good? What
It's all
flavor
right.
was it?
I don't know, chocolate, something. I have a whole bunch of them. Do you want one?
Sure.
Got them at Costco.
Yeah, those are good. I'm having brisket fajitas with chipotle crema and cheese.
Ooh.
You guys have Costco in Mexico?
Oh yeah, it's the best Costco ever. I have an addiction.
Hmm.
My teenage son started going to Costco with me because I just couldn't come out of there without spending $100 at
Oh,
least.
For somebody with ADHD and
it's the worst place.
a credit card without supervision,
Oh yeah.
I went to go get a Christmas thing for my wife, and I came back with a arcade basketball hoop.
I'm not allowed to go to Micro Center on my own.
Oh, Microsoft
Oh shit,
Microsoft is
no.
dangerous.
So I was in Minnesota last week, and I was alone, and they don't have a guitar center here in Mexico. You know,
Oh dear.
they don't have really good music. I mean, they have good music shops, but not the same kind. So I went to Guitar Center,
Just
and there you go, little bitty guitar, like a ukulele.
ukulele.
I yeah, so I bought a keyboard, a stage keyboard, like a really nice one, like $2,500.
My God.
And I had my whole story prepared. I even had it documented. I was like, okay, because I have to explain this to my wife. Talk about budget justification. So I'm like, okay, these are the reasons why I think this was a really good choice. And, this is how I intend to put it to good practice to get the value out of it. I had everything. And on the plane here, I was memorizing it all. I was like, I got this, and so I got home and I told my wife, I'm like, I got this thing. She's like, good for you. And I was like, what? Talk about, not planned. I was like, okay. So this document here that I don't need this. She's like, this, she thought it was so cute that I wrote
That's
that.
funny.
It's a Asturia um, Astrolab. Look it up. It's pretty badass. Took me a while to get it just plugged in. I mean, it's pretty sophisticated. I'll play
So
something for you sometime. Brad, when you come visit me, I will play it for you. I have a ukulele, so you can bring yours or you can use mine.
I'm not very good at it.
I suck at all the things that I have. I just have them. And people
I,
think just because you got it, like you're good at it.
I took piano lessons for a long time. I can play a couple of songs.
Like you have four guitars and a bass guitar and two keyboards. You must be like a really good musician. No, nope. I suck at all of it.
All right, Brian, let's do these test questions so that we can get out of here on time and I can eat my dinner.
I'm having another protein bar.
cool. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Cool. So I've got
It's
the
like a bunch
answers
of
on another screen here.
it's like a bunch of words.
So let's hit it here. Let's put that right here. Cool. All right. So a multinational organization has discovered that multiple departments have procured cloud services without centralized approval. What is the most effective approach to ensure that asset inventories remain accurate and compliant with security policies? Do you have periodic manual audits of departmental purchases? Do you deploy an automated discovery tool for cloud asset tracking? Do you require annual security training on asset management, or do you mandate procurement through IT governance committee?
I'm gonna go with D.
So going through the committee. I don't know. I think so. This one's saying it's most effective. Maybe not. I don't know if I'd qualify the answer that they give as the most effective. Any other thoughts on that before I throw that out
I,
there?
I
I want
could
to go with B.
I could see B, but I
Well, it doesn't talk about anything. I mean, why are we doing, I don't know, governance. I like B. I'm gonna stick with B.
I like B. I like B too.
D is
They
the
have-
right answer.
Yeah, they
Because
have
it's
B as
about
well.
most effective way to ensure. So mandating,
Yeah, well, but
oh,
I just you're not. That's not. I mean, that doesn't ensure compliance with security policies if you're just discovering it without having that anything on the to enforce. Then it doesn't necessarily mean anything. I don't know.
I don't know what's the answer, Brian.
So it is B is what they're giving here.
B for Bravo.
Yep.
Eh.
So Brian just asked about the contest again. Here was the contest. Whoever brought up the most wins the contest. Brian, you just won because
Congrats, Brian.
because I suck at making things that I forget about. So Brian, congratulations. Send me your information and I'll buy you plane tickets to Mexico.
Damn, dude. Nice.
Yeah, why not? It's just money. You're supposed to die with zero. Wait, that's a book I read. Have you read this book, Die with Zero?
I can't say I have.
No.
The point is to live rich, not die rich.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Money is fun coupons.
For me, it is.
That's an
Yeah,
awesome way to look at it. Right.
especially with pesos because it's like monopoly money.
All right. I'm getting hungry, so I'm gonna keep this on track. Sorry, Evan.
Go, Brad, go.
All right.
So
Go for it.
a financial system allows account clerks to both input and approve transactions under certain conditions. What control would best enforce the principle of least privilege?
Mhm.
So we've got role-based access control, we've got dual control, least functionality principle, or context-based access control.
So dual control is out because it's saying that it's allowing them to input and approve under certain conditions. So that eliminates that. Role based doesn't really help. I'd say, yeah, at least privilege or at least functionality. I mean,
Who declined the tickets? Brian declined the tickets,
But
or my foodie? I think
I don't see Brian saying
trying to socially engineer this little game
I
we're
think
playing
so.
right now. I'm onto your things there, foodie.
So, to help
All
you
right.
out, Brad. It is B is what they have as dual control
How,
as the answer.
how can they?
Not they. This is ChatGPT. It's it.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying. Okay, yeah, I got whatever.
So I think that the idea here is that they're wanting you to split that up. Although I would say that least privilege isn't quite where I would put that.
That is poorly worded, Chat GPT.
Yeah. Let's
I
see if
don't disagree.
ChatGPT can pass the damn test.
Oh, it couldn't because it couldn't dive into its
Doesn't even know. He never even read the book.
everything. It doesn't. Yeah, exactly.
Stupid ChatGPT.
So which of the following is the best example of an operational control in security operations? Encrypting data at rest, reviewing system audit logs daily, implementing a data classification policy, or performing a business impact analysis.
I know the answer.
Well, I'm 0 for 2 apparently, so go for it.
All right, B.
B,
I second that.
second.
I don't even know anymore. Up is down, down is up,
He's
left is right.
he's got low blood sugar right now.
Well, operational is something that it's an action. It's ops.
It's operational. It's something you repeat on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. B is correct on that one. You're
I would
right.
have laughed if it had given a different answer.
Then
Oh.
then I would have written a letter to that OpenAI, whoever runs this thing.
Vulnerability management is next. An enterprise runs quarterly vulnerability scans but struggles with remediation prioritization. What is the best method to improve this process? Patch all discovered vulnerabilities immediately, have a risk-based vulnerability management framework, extend scanning to a monthly schedule, outsource remediation to a third party.
I'm gun shy.
It's B again.
B.
B, yeah, B it out.
B, 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 B.
Yeah, you know, ChatGPT didn't do a very good job at randomizing the correct letters on this one. All right. Number five. Which control most directly protects personnel safety during an active shooter event? Turnstiles with badge access, CCTV monitoring, lockdown procedures and employee training, or visitor escort policies.
It's not B.
Definitely not B.
Not B this time.
Charlie.
Charlie.
Charlie?
Charlie.
Right.
CC.
I agree. C on this one, and that's what it has as well. So I've just a personal experience. Sorry, Brad. I was in a school, grade school one time when they did a lockdown procedure drill. Man, that's scary, dude. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Scary
It's-
for the kid. My son
yeah,
hates.
exactly. Like, it sucks that they have to do that. And I was like, I was in a classroom and like I was filling in for IT for a day, and I was like, what do I do? I don't know. Like, and they're like, no, you just do whatever you're doing right now. Just don't go outside right now. But it was weird, man. It
The
was
high
weird.
school had one this past year, and it was an active lockdown. It turned out it was a construction worker that didn't follow the procedure of checking in and had gone up to the roof and had a drill in his hand, and people
Mm.
thought it was a gun. And my daughter was terrified.
Yeah. It's,
That's
right.
scary.
Next up, SIEM use. A SIEM platform receives thousands of alerts per day, overwhelming analysts. Which capability is most effective for reducing false positives and enabling timely detection of actual threats? Dashboard customization, static alert rules, threat intelligence, integration and behavioral analytics, or adding more log resources for deeper visibility.
It's
C.
back to B again.
You think?
Yeah.
Oh, reducing false positives. Yeah, you're right.
According to them, it's threat intelligence, integration, and behavioral analytics.
That's what ChatGPT said?
Yep.
No,
So-
absolutely not. No, because
Yeah.
behavioral analytics is way more prone to false positives
Yeah.
than static alerts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But even with integrating the threat intel,
Yeah. Because
Okay.
your threat intel is shit too, usually.
So let me look. I have this.
Because your threat intel is going to rely on like IOCs, but the behavioral analytics is what makes C completely wrong. And I would fight ChatGPT on this. Where is it? Who is it? Where is this ChatGPT? I don't even know who this person is.
I'll get you Mr. GPT's information so you can give him a visit.
Yeah, send me an
Or
email.
them, maybe.
Yeah, because the static is going to definitely reduce false positives.
100%.
Signature known thing.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And that would be the point of, and that's what they would ask in the exam, would be directed at that answer, right? Because what they want to point out in the exam is what method of detection is the least prone to false positives. And you really have, anomaly detection, behavioral analytics, or static alerts. Those are your three primary types. And of those three primary types, the answer is B.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And if you're doing timely detection of actual threats, then I could see that being there. But the reducing the false positives, what throws that?
I'm so angry at ChatGPT right now.
Oh, thank God it's not just me.
Yeah, I'm gonna send some
All right.
nasty prompts its way pretty soon.
A firm wants to prevent exfiltration of sensitive documents via cloud sharing apps. Which
Learn how to
egress
use a damn
control
firewall.
is most effective
Sorry.
for this? Wait, firewalls are supposed to block things both ways, not just incoming?
I don't know.
What?
That's what I was
Right, so we've
taught.
got endpoint antivirus, DNS sinkholing, data loss prevention with content inspection, or IP whitelisting for web access.
See,
It doesn't even have the best one.
that's DLP all the way.
It is, but just
no,
use
because they're saying
just use your damn firewall right.
that it's the exfiltration of the sensitive data is where it's assuming that cloud file sharing apps they're using approved potentially.
I
Here's my
suppose. But the most common way to exfiltrate data is still FTP.
Is it really?
Yes.
Huh.
I always, when I was studying, and I think even to this day, I get whitelisting and blacklisting confused. Do you have an easy way, either
White,
any of you guys?
Allow and deny.
yeah, white is allow listing. We call it allow listing, and black is deny listing. No.
So deny by default, only allow. If you look in the slides that I have, it's got that in there, and I have a kind of an easy way to allow is very permissive. You're only blocking what is known to be bad. Deny is very restrictive. You're only allowing what's been approved.
Thank you.
Asset security and inventories. Which of the following is a significant limitation of using only asset tags and spreadsheets for tracking critical hardware assets? Increased CapEx, lack of software licensed data, difficulty maintaining real-time accuracy, or overhead from training users on tagging.
See,
Yeah, I'm gonna go with C as well.
Cool. This one, ChatGPT actually got right because I agree. All right, next up, security operations. What is the primary benefit of rotating personnel through different security roles in Operations Center? Ensure cross-training and reduced insider threats, reducing staffing costs through job consolidation, enabling rapid promotion to management, or meeting compliance with ISO 2071.
A.
A. I think ChatGPT is listening to us because we talked about that.
Well, this was generated before we actually did this, so
Oh, so it can read the future too?
Yeah,
Yep.
quantum ChatGPT can. For sure.
Next up, vulnerability management. A zero-day vulnerability affecting your core web application is announced. What is the first step you should take in the incident response process?
S.
Yeah, well, I was reading that and it's like, wait a minute, are we qualifying this as an incident that there's a 0 day out there? Like, are we assuming that it's already been that you're already compromised in some sort? Should this be an incident? That's where my mind was going as I was reading this.
I would say D in this one.
D. So isolate or mitigate the vulnerable system.
I
Yeah.
think we don't have enough information because it's a 0 day. You can't do anything.
A 0 day is it can't. There's no vendor recommended patches. We don't know if it's a breach yet.
Or workarounds.
Yeah, so how could you mitigate it or isolate the
Isolate.
system?
I think you're saying, well, you're isolating or restricting access to the system.
Yep.
Like a VLAN or something?
Or just taking it off the network. Yeah. Blocking access to it from its internal access only. Block access to the internet until you were able to put something in place.
D.
I'm gonna go with B.
So D
It was D?
Yep, D.
Nah.
All right. So, and just to show you guys this, because this is the answer key here. Like I said, granted, some of these didn't really agree with, but I just thought it was funny that the distribution there is not great in terms of the answers I was given. So, and just to throw it out there and make this seem good, I totally did this on purpose to make you guys know that, or help you guys realize that ChatGPT isn't the best way to study. So yeah, totally, I did that.
Yeah,
So,
totally. I did that.
yeah,
Is it because you're using the free version and not the paid one?
it could be. I'm not even signed in, as you can see. That's how I handle ChatGPT and those things. I don't want it. Although I do realize that need to know it. And it's going to be here no matter what we do. So better to adapt to it and start using it to my advantage than deny its existence. So, all right.
All right.
I'll get this out of here. So with that, unless anybody has anything else, I don't have anything. I will not hold you guys here. Brad, you can go eat dinner because I'm going to go eat dinner too because I'm hungry.
It is going to be delicious.
This has been a fantastic discussion.
Yep.
Thank you
guys. I
for
appreciate it.
improving my quality of life today.
Well, thank you for hanging out. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
And have a good one.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks. Take care.